Which Side Podcast is a proud member of the Which Side Media Collective.
This is episode 75.
Yeah, we have Matt Almonte on from the Tar Sands Blockade for the Keystone XL pipeline.
So check them out at tarsandsblockade.org and support them. It's fucked up.
Word.
We are still doing our giveaway.
Yeah, so what you have to do is go on to whichsidepodcast.com. You can click on Ashland Creek Press and
follow the instructions. It's just a like post, win a free book.
Yeah, so just go to whichsidepodcast.com/Ashland Creek.
There's a bunch of other ways you can enter, really simple ways, and they're on there. So, increase your chances of winning the free book and a year-long membership.
There's also runner-up prizes, so even if you don't win, you might win something else.
April 16th, 2000. 20,000 blockade meetings of the World Bank and IMF in Washington, D.C. I missed that one.
I didn't go.
I missed that one.
What day?
April 16th.
Ooh, yeah.
2000. You were in junior high.
Yeah, I know.
No, you might have been in elementary school.
Not in 2000.
What year was your graduating class?
5.
2005?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you were in 9th grade, or 7th grade.
Told you. We have an addendum to last week's episode with Charlotte Malrich. We talked to her again. Normally we'd release something like this as bonus content.
But we're gonna give it to everyone this week.
Yeah. So we're gonna put a link to the episode in the description of last week's episode with Charlotte Malrich.
And we'll also have a link under the special episode sections on the website. So whichsidepodcast.com.
Well, fuck you. Now I have to go and do that.
Yeah, Jordan will add that.
Well, and social media will also post it, so.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. Fuck you. That's work for me. Damn it.
Hey, enjoy this one, guys.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side? Which side are you on? 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 Which side are you on?
Hello?
Hi, this is Matt.
Hey, this is Jordan.
Hey, Jordan, how are you?
And I'm
I'm
Jeremy,
good.
by the way.
Hi, how are you?
Doing good.
We like to tag team. So
Cool.
if you hear a high five, that's just us getting ready to body slam.
Awesome.
So just a second ago, we were looking up online, and I want to know, why are you trying to take jobs away from Americans?
That's the age-old question. What do I have against American jobs?
God damn you!
Well, American jobs are they're deadly, more often than not. Let's be real. So, well.
That's fine. I'm okay with deadly jobs as long as they're with Americans.
Yeah, some people are. Well, I mean, honestly, with this type of infrastructural work that's happening with fossil fuel extraction and all these dirty industries and dirty companies and corporations, the jobs are not only really shitty for the planet and really shitty for human beings and animal populations as well. In this particular case, in the context of the Keystone XL pipeline and other things like that, there's not even really that many jobs being created in the first place. So I think that needs to be said. Not only are the jobs shitty, but there's just not really that kind of number out there that would justify the creation of these pipelines in the first place.
So that's a pretty good talking point. You have that
Thank
one.
you.
You have that one down.
I do my best.
How often do people ask dumbass questions like that?
You'd be surprised. I think the the thickness of the propaganda is it really permeates people's heads. More often than you'd think. You would think that a lot of these points are pretty easy to refute, pretty easy to just kind of like swat away. But when you're talking about these huge transnational, oil pipelines with a lot at stake, if there's a few jobs to be promised, that's all I really need to know. Let's go forward with it, is the predominant ideology. So I'm actually confronted with that quite often. Really basic points that I would assume that people can kind of move past and know better, by now, but that's unfortunately not the case.
So if people don't know what we're talking about right now, what are you talking about?
Well, what I'm talking about is the Keystone XL pipeline, and my experience with it is in the southern leg, which is already built. It's already operational. It's in the ground. It's not really a matter of if or when President Obama is going to approve it and get it started. That really only applies to the north. There's another extension from Montana all the way down to Cushing, Oklahoma, that has yet to be approved. But the southern leg that I and other people within the group Tar Sands Blockade and other community members here in Texas and in Oklahoma, what we've been campaigning against is this huge tar sands pipeline that's been proposed, and it's been built, as I said, and the end product will run from Alberta, from the oil sand fields up in Alberta, Canada, all the way down to refineries down in southern Texas. So that's kind of the context of what I and what we've been working on for the past couple of years now.
How pissed off does it make you?
I don't know. That's actually a good question. I kind of bounce around with feelings. Sometimes I'm pissed off. Sometimes I'm just depressed. There's just this despair that these industrial projects seem to be popping up every which way, and they seem to be doing increasingly more damage to the human communities who live on the land where these pipelines and these other projects are going through. Also, the animal populations and these whole living regions that are just being decimated for industry. It's definitely something that gets me pissed quite often. But I think by now I've learned to convert that anger into action, and I think that that's something that people should start to do. Is as they start to get angrier and angrier that companies like TransCanada and Enbridge and Exxon and all these other corporations who are just swooping in, dropping their shit everywhere and making billions of dollars off of it, instead of just sitting on the sidelines and being angry, I'd like to see people turn those tears, turn those fists into something that can be productive to stop these projects from happening in the first place. So that's where I'm at right now, but I'm also still pissed off.
So with the northern leg of the pipeline, do you feel it's realistic to stop, or is it kind of like a fight we have to fight because it's right to fight, but maybe not winnable? I don't know if that's a real question.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it's winnable. I think the pessimist in me sees that none of these fights are probably particularly winnable. I was hesitant to come down to East Texas in the first place to help campaign against KXL South under the guise that I thought that I was going to stop it. I'm not sure if I really felt like, hey, my presence here and our presence here is going to definitively stop this multi-billion-dollar industrial project dead in its tracks. But I think, what you were saying before about like, resistance for resistance sake, just like it's worth fighting in general principle. I think that that is a stronger point than people like to give that credit for. Like if it doesn't seem like it's winnable, why bother? I think that instead of that, I think that we should be aiming more towards continuing this tradition of resistance, even in the face of something that we're not sure is going to be winnable. So honestly, I'm not sure, but I would definitely be a lot more pissed and a lot more angry and a lot sadder if I didn't see anybody doing anything to stop it at all.
So what are some of the things that people are doing currently as far as resistance goes to this pipeline?
Well, the group that I've been working with, Tar Sands Blockade, we have been working with communities throughout Texas, in East Texas, and down in Houston's toxic East End, where a lot of these refineries, where they bear a lot of the brunt of this industrial pollution and things like that. What we've been doing is, now that the pipeline is actually in the ground in the south, that doesn't mean that the work is over for us, obviously, or for the community members who have to live here with the pipes. There's a lot of community work being done, still, raising consciousness, raising awareness about this, the risks of danger for when this thing spills, making sure people are aware that it's nearby, making sure that people are aware of what substance is coming out of this pipe instead of it being conventional crude. So there's a lot of organizing work being done on the real grassroots, lower level to really, unite communities and neighborhoods who, as I said, face the brunt of the bullshit that comes with things like the Keystone XL pipeline. And other than that, just helping to facilitate trainings, helping communities with direct action trainings along the northern route as well. Different things like moccasins on the ground, where we go to like Pine Ridge in South Dakota and other areas like that, and we meet with the neighborhoods and other people there, and just kind of unite our strengths and just kind of prepare. At this point, the people in the northern leg, I'm not personally participating in it, but there's been a lot of prep work for when this thing gets approved by President Obama. So there's a lot of training and direct action, and just spreading the information, spreading the education that this is it. This needs to be it. Whether or not we actually win remains to be seen, but we need to, present a united front for the future, because the KXL, as much publicity as it's gotten, and as much of a fight as we and other people around the country have put up against it, there's a lot of different tar sands pipelines all over this country, all over Canada, so-called Canada, and there's a lot still in the works. So there's a lot of work to continue to be done. So we're training ourselves for that.
Yeah, in fact, we have a tar sands pit in development here locally in Utah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and so it's definitely a thing it's becoming more popular. Unfortunately, What's Trans Canada's response been to a lot of the fighting resistance?
Well, I mean, there's been, on the one hand, there's been a lot of typical the response that you would expect from a corporation like Trans Canada, like PR points, handing out PR points to major media outlets like, this is really clean energy, our pipelines are safe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to be creating this many jobs.
Wait. They actually said clean?
That kind of typical stuff. But behind the scenes, I think their reaction was a bit more oppositional. We have seen that they have been part of meetings with different law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, that the FBI has been meeting with law enforcement officials in Oklahoma and other places. I think they really wanted to make sure that they could stay a step ahead of us, and rather than, on the one hand, in the media, kind of brush us off and say, this isn't really a thing, we're not too concerned, this is going to be the new energy future. On the other hand, really trying to squash us as much as they could, and to make sure that we couldn't continue to stop their project as best we could. So I hope that answers your question.
I'm just blown away that they would actually say it's clean. You know what? Yeah. It's one thing to say, hey, we're running out of energy, we should do this. Yeah, it's kind of fucked up, but whatever. But it's just I don't know. I'm speechless.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have just kind of gotten to a point, we as the consuming public here in the so-called United States, I think we've just become so complacent and so submissive, and we just kind of accept that even this, to the eye, to the nose, to the touch, to every sense we have, we can tell that this tar sand substance, whatever it is not clean by any stretch of the imagination. But if we just kind of polish it up and we, put a TransCanada logo on it, and we start talking about jobs, and we play on people's fears and all these things, it becomes really easy for people to digest that tar sands could be clean, or natural gas could be clean, or nuclear power could be clean, or even coal, of all things. We've really seen, especially lately, a lot of these larger coal companies, trying to push through the clean coal message. How you can have clean coal is beyond me, but people are still swallowing it these days. Maybe not as much as they used to. Hopefully not as much as they used to. But yeah, it's still out there.
It's still just shocking because tar sands bitumens aren't even oil. They're just
unless you've seen it, I don't even know how to really describe it to people.
Yeah, it's and so the whole process of extracting it, I don't know how you could justify that as being clean in any aspect. Just plain and simple.
Yeah. I think if people saw the process of production, the process of extraction, if people really took a look at what the land base in the Athabasca region looks like now that tar sands is being ripped from the earth, it's kind of goes along with that same argument that if people could actually take a peek into slaughterhouses, a lot less of them would be eating meat, but people don't look into slaughterhouses, and people don't look at the Athabasca region, and people don't have the luxury, so to speak, of being able to discern truth from the bullshit. And so bullshit's just everywhere. It's just kind of flying every which way, unfortunately.
I think one of the major points that a lot of people do actually, what's the word I'm looking for?
Believe in,
is I guess you could say is how much water it actually takes to get.
Oh, you mean like they don't understand just how many resources it actually takes to extract this, and how it's decimating water tables,
and those resources are something that's important, to them, where they might not think that another aspect of it is important. When they're taking your water or your land, that's definitely something that affects people more. So,
yeah, it's very resource intensive on all fronts. It's not a very pretty picture when it comes out, and it's not something that I feel like human beings should be engaging in. So yeah, I think a lot of people are waking up to that. A lot of these communities are waking up to that and realizing that they have the power to stop this stuff. And doing it. So hopefully it stops.
So what was the moment that just made you go, you know what? I'm going to dedicate myself to this cause. Like, what was that tipping point for you?
Oh wow. Wow, what was that moment? I think it was just a culmination. I think it was a culmination of just seeing day after day, the damage being wrought on First Nations communities where the stuff is being extracted in the first place. And also just realizing that, when Tar Sands Blockade kind of kicked off the ground and they launched this tree village in northern Texas, I wasn't a part of it at that point. And so I think that also kind of influenced me, like, hey, these people who are roughly my age with roughly my interests are doing something about this thing. And why the hell am I not doing it? Or why can't I do it? What reason can I summon in my head to justify my inactivity? And at the end of the day, I think that those reasons are just few and far between because we're dealing with something so serious. And so I quit my job and I left the collective house that I was living in up in the Northeast, and I just decided to go live full time with this campaign. And it was a shock. It wasn't quite what I expected in some aspects, but I don't regret it, and I think that more people should be doing it. If you have the means and the education and the resources to contribute, then I think that more people should be saying, "Hey, I'm going to dedicate myself to this cause."
So, what does that entail for you when you say you moved there and you completely dedicate yourself to it? Like, what does that mean?
Well, in this particular case, with the blockade, with Tar Sands Blockade, hitched a ride down to Texas. I had already had previous contact with somebody who was among the original group who first kind of, got that first tree village off the ground. And so through them, I was able to find out where the bulk of the activity was going on. And I just got there, and then you just start living there. You start living, outside, camping, and all the rest that comes with a full-time direct action campaign, just trying to stay one step ahead of TransCanada, mapping out the route, scouting locations, thinking of different actions, trying to be original and imaginative, and also strategic, because we don't want to just throw people into jail cells for no reason. We don't want people to get tased for no reason, like like these Texas cops were doing to people who were locked down. So we tried to be very deliberate about that. But especially towards the beginning of when I was there, that was a lot of the day-to-day work was, working groups, splitting up, figuring out where we were going to be, what we were going to be doing, and how to continue this campaign that was just kind of growing and growing and growing as the days continued. So,
I'm not extremely familiar with how the tree village was there, but one of my most memorable experience of being an activist was actually taking part of a tree sit, and just how much you learned, and just being out there. It was like transformative, actually. Like it's just amazing, like the personal insights you can gain and learn and move forward as an activist that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Ironically, I never really participated in any tree sits or any of those kinds of trainings because I'm very afraid of heights. I'm also not good with knots. So I never really bothered to climb, but I did a lot of blockades trainings and sat in a pipe for my action and other things like that. And so it really helped. It helped me to learn as much as I thought that I already knew when I first got there. It was definitely a learning experience, and it was definitely a pivotal one at that for my transformation and my continued development as an activist and an organizer and all those other labels that we like to put on ourselves.
What's been your most memorable experience so far doing it?
With the Tar Sands Blockade?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I will personally probably remember the action that I took part in myself in early December of 2012. Myself and two other people, Glenn Collins and Isabel Brooks, barricaded ourselves into about a mile-long section of pipe in the town of Winona, Texas. And we barricaded ourselves inside the pipe with three plastic barrels full of concrete. So they were about like 500, 600, 700 pounds, something like that. And we locked ourselves to it, and it was a very liberating experience, and it was very, I felt like I was doing something. And it was one of the first times in my life that I felt like I was actually stopping something. I was actually sitting in the middle of an injustice, so to speak. I see something about to happen, and I also see on the other end like how it's going to end up, and I kind of stepped into the middle along with Isabel and Glenn and all the other people who did that with Tar Sands Blockade and stuff. But for me personally, it was very liberating, and it was and also after we were extracted, I was in jail for about a month after that, which I wasn't quite prepared for. So that was another memorable experience. But I think it all kind of contributes to, like I said before, just an overall learning experience that I'm very happy that I was able to have here in Texas.
So just for my own personal knowledge, was the lockdown, was it like your hands inside the barrels, like that type of lockdown? Was it a U-lock to the barrels?
Yeah, no, we had lock boxes going through
the barrels. Okay.
We had like the PVC pipes going through the barrels themselves, and we had our arms, both arms. Since I was in the middle, I had both my arms, my left one in one barrel and my right one in another one. So and it ended up being just like a long chain of like barrel, person, lockbox, barrel, person, et cetera, et cetera. So we had, we put a lot of prep work into it, and we had anticipated being there for days and days and days, but we were extracted after the first day. The cops just kind of threw a rope around the barrels and just kind of pulled us out, unfortunately. But
really, they actually pulled the barrels with your arms inside of them?
Yeah, they did. They
Holy
did. They
fuck.
pulled us out, and we kept telling them. First, they were throwing, a lot of the threats like, we're going to pick up the pipe and tip you all out, or we're going to, send dogs in. All these really outlandish things that we never really believed. But then finally they were like, all right, we're just going to tie this rope here, and we're just going to pull y'all out if you don't come out. And there was just something about that one threat, as even though it was similarly outlandish, I didn't really believe. I did believe them immediately, and so they just pulled us out. Luckily, the one of the chains on the carabiners snapped before any limbs did, so that's what prevented any serious injury. But
Yeah, I mean, that's fucking dangerous.
That's crazy.
yeah, definitely. It was a pretty surreal experience. That obviously contributes to why it's one of my more memorable ones.
Yeah.
But thankfully nothing terrible happened. Comparatively speaking, arms being pulled out of sockets, things like that. But
Yeah.
we were taken out and sent to jail right after that.
So, as someone who's organized lockboxes and been part of lockboxes, one of the things that we always did, which is one of those weird, funny things that no one ever talks about, is make sure everyone was wearing adult diapers. Did you guys take those type of preparations?
Yes.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's one of those things no
the
activist
depends
ever
are
talks
there.
about.
The depends are on hand for when we need them. And buckets, and
There you go.
you gotta prepare for the dirty work as well.
You
So,
definitely do.
yeah.
You definitely do.
Lesser talked about sides of
Yeah.
blocking.
Exactly. Yeah.
I remember, maybe you guys had this conversation. I know we always did, was, whether or not to use actual handcuffs or carabiners. And it sounds like you guys chose carabiners.
Yeah, we did choose carabiners. That kind of back and forth. What kind of equipment to use? The nitty gritty that goes into constructing these kinds of devices. They're pervasive. Everywhere that I've ever been, every training I've been a part of, every action I've been a part of, people are kind of, throwing ideas out. You always want to be as safe as you can and as effective as you can. So, but yeah, I'm familiar with that one.
Because some of the horror stories you hear, wasn't there a time where someone got their finger cut off or something
In
like that?
New York,
Uh-huh.
inside of a barrel. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I believe it was a fur protest. I want to say it was Neiman Marcus,
Mhm.
but I'm not 100% positive. That would have been 99, 2000, I think.
Mhm. And she ended up getting
I think she won $1 million
a
lawsuit.
$1 million lawsuit from it.
Yeah.
But
Jeez.
That could be 100% incorrect.
yeah.
I'm not saying that it's fact.
So
Yeah,
definitely
that's-
safety is something you have to consider.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. That's my fear. When I have my arm in some kind of contraption where I can't see it and there are blades coming toward me, I
Mhm.
start to freak out. That's definitely the default. What are you going to do with that thing? But hopefully it works out. Hopefully people can be safe. Like you said.
So, was that your first stint in a jail?
Yes. Yeah, it was.
How was that for you? Was that did they prepare you enough for like what it would be like?
I do want to say that we had a good, jail support team.
Mm-hmm.
At Tar Sands Blockade, and we all like to stay legally informed. What kind of charges we might incur, how long we might expect to be in jail, what kind of jail we might be in, things like that.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure that anybody could be adequately prepared for what ended up happening in Smith County that day. It wasn't a terrible experience in terms of just like quality of life. I think the worst part of it was just the not knowing when I was going to be able to get out. And I've heard from lots of other people that's a pretty big fear when you're in there under those circumstances and you don't have any kind of fixed sentence. It just becomes a waiting game, and the clock just kind of ticks ever so slowly, and you just think to yourself, all right, when the hell am I going to get out of here? Especially when like a lot of these direct actions, the people might be arrested and spend a night in jail or 2 or 4 or 5, something along those lines. But by the end of the month, by the end of the third and fourth week, you're just, it's not the end of the world, but you're thinking, what the fuck's going on? And I think by that time I had kind of had that feeling for long enough. And it was about New Year's when I got the call that they were going to come bail me out. So, it was jail. It wasn't very pleasant, but I don't regret doing the action, and I don't regret spending that time in jail. I think that jail is not the worst thing that can happen to a person for engaging in direct action for animals or for the earth. I think that kind of mentality, that kind of conception is really prevalent among a lot of people, like, my parents included, like, oh, why can't you just do things that don't land you in jail and do whatever you want, but just don't go to jail for it. And, my honest thought is, well, can we draw the line somewhere else besides going to jail? Can we draw that line at, something actually substantial, like violence, anything that's going to like end my life or something serious? If we have to go to jail for defending the earth, then I think that we should be prepared for that. If we have the privilege of going to jail, I think that we should be okay with that.
Yeah.
It's funny you bring that up because I remember having that conversation with my parents about, whether or not it's worth going to jail for. And I remember saying, look, I know you guys, there's things that you would die for and go to jail for. Like, this is just one of those things. You have to accept that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you got to communicate that to people as much as you can, because once you start going to jail, people are just like, oh, this is, I can't do that. That's something that's kind of off limits to me. But I think it's just kind of, shadows and smoke. I think jail will be okay for a lot of people, a lot more people than think they can handle it.
I know Jordan could attest to this because he spent a lot more time in jail than me. I mean, a lot. And it's really just boring.
Yeah.
But your point on not having a set release date is important, because I think when I was in federal prison, I did have a release date, and so that was definitely an easier time for me. Where when I had that 4 months of civil jail time,
where you didn't know,
where I didn't know when I'd get out, it's definitely a lot more stressful, because even your basic things like ordering commissary, it's like, should I order commissary? I might get out next week. It sounds silly, but
it's real. Yeah,
it's real.
Totally. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, the boredom sets in, and it's an ordeal, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So you said you used to live in a collectivist house.
Yeah, I lived at this vegan anarchist collective up in Massachusetts for a little while, probably somewhere around 4, 5, 6 months before I went down to Texas. And I actually just spent more time there for over this past Christmas, December and January, just to kind of revisit friends and tell stories and things like that. But yeah, it was a pretty cool spot up in Central Mass. They do a lot of really cool organizing in the community for lots of vegan advocacy and other things like that. So it was really easy for me to plug in there and find some really cool like-minded folks there.
So what really got you involved in being more radical and being an activist?
I think it was just music. My older brother would just we were always really into music when we were younger, and he would just kind of toss me Rage Against the Machine CDs and Propaganda CDs and other things like that. That at the time I couldn't really wrap my head around. I just really liked the music. I liked playing the drums, and so as fast as I could play, the happier I would be. And then I kind of started appreciating the lyrics and understanding that there's this sentiment out there among many people of being against war and against patriarchy and against eating animals and other things like that. And I found it really, really easy to plug into those ideas and to really sympathize, and not only sympathize on paper, but really feel like my goals in life should be tied to breathing life into these words that I'm always talking about, these songs that I'm always singing. I wanted to do something a little more direct. So it kind of went hand in hand, the music with the politics.
So, who are you listening to a lot right now?
Right now? Oh God. Well, I don't really have a ton of access to a computer, so I don't really listen to a lot of newer music, but the same old Propaganda CDs and old Bad Brains, a lot of older punk like that, things like that. Probably be in my car stereo forever. So that's what I'm still currently listening to.
I love just how many people do get into activism and radical thinking through music, especially punk rock and hardcore, even some ska.
Yeah.
No ska.
Never ska.
Fuck you, Ruby.
But I think music and activism and that whole thing, I think they go hand in hand pretty easily. So I enjoy the hell out of it, and it continues to push me. Finding these old like Conflict records, talking about vivisection, and it exposes you to new ideas while also bringing an artistic side to it. And so I still continue playing music and playing shows around New England, and whenever I can, while also participating in the campaigns. I think they're they can be one and the same if you know where to look and you know how to act.
Conflict is just good.
Mm.
Yeah, they are.
Conflict's good?
Yeah.
What kind of conflict are we talking? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So
yeah.
Do you mainly play hardcore or punk rock or?
Yeah, I mean, as a drummer, it kind of varies. I definitely play a lot of hardcore, and I've been in some punk bands and things like that. But I also play a lot of jazz drumming and reggae. Really anything that can, anything that gets the beat going. I'm very percussive, so I really like that regard. And I don't know. I tend to find a lot of music, regardless of the genre. A lot of the message is always really there. So as long as that's there, I can probably pound something out on the drums to it.
I was just gonna say, so you really are Bad Brains.
I do my best, yeah.
So, how many bands are in? Because most drummers usually are in a bunch of bands.
Yeah, you're the elusive, like, shit, I just need a good drummer.
Oh, God. Oh, man.
So it's true.
So, yeah.
It is true, yes.
So, are you in any good music projects you'd want to push or anything? And
nothing that I'm particularly involved in at this point. I was playing drums for a little while with a band in New Jersey called Gifts out of Montclair. They're putting out some good music still, and that's really cool. They're doing a lot of big things up there. Montclair's got a lot of good music coming out, usually all the time. But other than that, nothing that I'd plug at the moment, unfortunately.
Okay, I don't know if you'd know this, but it would have been about 2001 in Jersey. There was a little local hardcore band called The Assistants. Are you familiar with them?
I don't think I'm familiar with them.
I just want to know if they ever did any projects after that, because they were fucking amazing.
Or are they? Well, I guess I got to check them out then.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know. I'm all on the West Coast, so I don't keep track of the East Coast stuff very, very often.
I see. Yeah, it's understandable. Two very different worlds.
Yes. So, how did your family react to you being so radical?
Well, I think it evolves. When you're an obnoxious teenager running around screaming at people to be vegan and other things like that, it's the parents react in a different way than when you like actually carve out an existence and you kind of like start to quote unquote make a living. And by that I don't mean make a living at all, but just do it, despite the fact that you have to sleep in your car most nights. I think they can really appreciate that I'm a little more serious about it. But the ideas themselves have also become a lot less radical to them. They'll adopt, vegan dinners like once a month or something like that, or they'll like be able to sit down and watch a documentary about police violence while not totally brushing it aside like it's totally crazy. which is what they would used to do that kind of stuff. But I think they've grown into it. My ideas have become progressively more radical, but they're along for the ride, I guess, is the best way I can put it.
So you are a vegan?
Yeah, I'm personally vegan. Yes.
So what's
I
said a vegan.
vegan.
I know. I noticed it too after I said it. So shut up. A vegan. But yeah. So what's your vegan conversion story?
Just I mean, I just became vegan after watching the videos. The videos that I feel like PETA puts out there, and a lot of other advocacy organizations like that. I hate PETA, by the way, but
You're among
their
friends.
videos are sure persuasive. So when I was around 15 or 16, also I had a kidney transplant when I was about 15, and I just wanted to get my health in a better place. So so I stopped eating meat, and I stopped eating dairy and eggs and all that stuff, and it wasn't really that hard for me, and it wasn't really much of a choice. It just kind of came down to what kind of support I wanted to lend to an industry like that. Now my ideas since then have kind of grown and have kind of changed about like why I'm still vegan, but at the time it was really just a matter of these videos are gruesome, these factory farms and these fur farms and all these other facilities are really atrocious, and I don't want to participate, so I just stopped doing it.
Are there any documentaries that you've seen lately?
Lately?
Yeah, or do you kind of just tend not to watch them? I know personally, like everyone talks about Earthlings and stuff like that, and I've now seen it, but I avoided it for the longest time because it's like, why do I need to watch it?
I'm that kid that's like, why the fuck do I need to watch it?
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I don't like continuously remind myself. I don't have to remind myself why I'm vegan. I've seen a lot of the footage in Earthlings and other productions like that. But I guess Earthlings, while we're talking about it, is pretty good. Speciesism, the movie, I've heard is pretty good from some friends. I haven't actually sat down to watch it, but
I've never heard that
one either.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well,
there we go.
I'm not even entirely sure what it's about, but apparently it has
I'm
something
assuming
to do.
speciesism.
Yeah, I assume it has something to do with speciesism, so it's probably going to be pretty good. But yeah, maximum tolerated dose is another one that was interesting.
Yeah,
when
we
I
said
first
Carl
watched it.
on. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Sweet.
So, how was it going down to Texas being vegan?
I didn't really have any hesitations at first. I didn't really have any kind of like fears or like, what am I going to eat? I was pretty confident that I was going to be okay when I got there. But obviously, Texas is a bit of a cultural shift. So it was really just a matter of whether I was going to adopt this kind of like freegan outlook, like, oh, you want to be polite, you don't want to refuse food from someone who's offering it to you, or you can just like continue to be vegan. I just continued to be vegan. I thought I was fine. Honestly, the biggest thank you. The biggest kind of obstacle that I typically continue to run into is the opposition that I get from my veganism from other activists, but mostly from other like white middle class, like, activists who try to confront me on why being vegan is not the best thing, and why I'm deluding myself, blah 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 blah. So I think that was more of that gave me pause more than any kind of practical obstacles or anything like that, which is people being fucking annoying about why I should stop being vegan.
So what is that like in the environmentalist movement? I know that personally, I've had some problems with it, being one of maybe 2 vegans in an entire camp out or something like that. Yeah, like,
so we organized a camp out at the Tar Sands here. There's, 70 people?
Uh-huh.
I could count on 2 hands how many were vegan.
Yeah.
But since we organized it, we made sure it was all vegan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of I want to choose my words carefully because a lot of my friends...
You don't need to choose carefully here.
Okay. I get a lot of unnecessary bullshit from people because there's this I guess I'll put it a different way. PETA
It's
and
fucked.
other really like mainstream, typical white activists tend to leverage victories for animals off of other marginalized groups. They tend to communicate in ways that don't actually communicate effectively to marginalized groups. Things like that, you know. It's not everybody, but they're definitely out there. But I think the main problem that I've come into is that a lot of the people that I've interacted with in the radical environmental movement will kind of extend that generalization toward all vegans and just kind of assume that veganism as a whole, or even more broadly, just the cause of animal liberation as a whole, is inherently racist, classist. Not everybody can afford to be vegan, et cetera, fill in the blank with some thing that has nothing to do with why the fuck I'm vegan. But I hear it all the time, and I think it's just a lot of blowback from people who think that because I'm vegan, I can't possibly, demonstrate any solidarity with indigenous people fighting industrial projects like KXL or other things like that, because I obviously don't have respect for other people's food systems. Just a lot of like assumptions, a lot of like, you would kind of expect it, and you do hear it from non-activist people as well, or I do. I'm not gonna speak for everybody, but I hear it's the same shit that I hear from like, high school friends and other people who don't know the first thing about veganism, to come into a circle, like Tar Sands Blockade or the other, radical circles that I've been a part of in the past year or two or three, and still hear those things. It's just annoying more than anything, but I definitely run into it.
I've always liked to tell people, that bring up the aspects of like how PETA and a lot of these major organizations operate now, is a long time ago PETA was a very hardcore animal rights organization, but it seems like they've sold that to be mainly a welfare organization. In the face of like donations and money.
Yeah, I've seen that, and I think it's really easy, or it should be easier, for people to steer clear of the NGO route, specifically for those reasons. There's a lot of organizations like PETA, and even on the environmental side, like the Sierra Club and 350.org, that don't necessarily represent the interests of who they claim to represent, and they don't really advance the cause that they claim to be trying to advance. And yeah, it's a lot easier to continue making money over in Richmond, Virginia for, the PETA headquarters, rather than actually putting out a message of support for, intersectional, like broad-based, part of a broader struggle, animal liberation, and even veganism. I don't think veganism and animal liberation need to go hand in hand at all, but I think that a lot of the people who are loudest, like these people in PETA, tend to do a disservice to a vegan lifestyle by misrepresenting the hell out of it, unfortunately. But people on the ground are still out there spreading the word, thankfully.
I think like one of the best cases of evidence is Rod Coronado has said at times that he's not vegan, and there's no person that could tell me that he hasn't done shit to fucking help animals. So
exactly. So yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think that it's. Yeah, there was an article I was reading, I don't know, a week or two ago about, whether or not, I think we may even be talking about the same fucking article, about whether a vegan diet should be the moral baseline for people to participate in these kinds of activities. And yeah, just to echo what you said, I don't think that's true at all. I think that someone like Rod Coronado or anybody really who's going to put in the time and the effort and the blood and the sweat that somebody like him has put in, I don't really care if at the end of the day you don't eat the same way that I eat. So I think it should be about deeds instead of meals, instead of words. I think there's much more important things to be worrying about, like the actual actions that we take. So I value that a lot.
So let's talk DGR.
Oh God, are we at that point?
We are at that point.
It's really funny that we could just say 3 letters and it exhibits like,
just exhibits so much hatred.
Yeah, it elicits the appropriate amount of scorn, I think.
So I'm assuming. Well, should I assume your viewpoints? What are your viewpoints on DGR?
Really? Okay. You really want to know my opinion on DGR?
I do. I really do.
Okay. All right. Well, in my opinion, DGR it's a lot of theater. It's a lot of trans-misogynistic theater. I don't really see a terrible amount of action emanating from these local DGR groups or from the actual governing body that is, Derek Jensen, Lear Keith, and whoever else is on the authoritarian board that they've created over there. I don't see a lot of action coming out. I don't really see a terribly unique analysis of any kind. In fact, I'm not sure what it is they do aside from talk a lot of shit and exclude very valuable members of our community. So, yeah, and Lear Keith is Lear Keith. I think.
What the fuck else do you have to say?
That's it. That's all I really need to say about Lear Keith.
She just needs a pie in the face.
Yeah, another one. Exactly. Or maybe if we. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully they'll just go away at some point. But we can keep working.
Yeah. That was very well put. I've never really seen him do anything but try to get money.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know what they do. I can't stress it enough that I don't know what it is that they do, what kind of frontline work, which isn't to say that they do none at all. I'm sure they've forged bonds with certain communities out there, some number of communities, but I just don't know that. I guess to put it simply, any kind of vanguard historically that I've seen typically just spirals itself into the ground. And I see DGR as a pretty similar element. I feel like they've propped themselves up as the apex of militant eco-resistance. But I think that comes from the imagination of two authors. And that's really the best way I can put it. I don't see the on-the-ground effort being made. And even if they were engaged in a lot of on-the-ground effort, their victories would be at the expense, as I said, of excluding very, very valuable members of our community who put in work and who put in the time and who deserve, respect and recognition beyond the really hateful language that comes out of DGR more often than not. So I don't really consider them allies of the movement that I'm a part of, but I guess we'll see what happens with DGR.
Do you ever have to deal with individuals when you were working with the blockade?
No, not really. To the best of my knowledge, I don't recall any kind of significant support for DGR, and especially when they were during the times they were being even more vocal than usual about how much they hate trans people. It obviously wasn't really hard to come to some kind of unanimous agreement in Tar Sands Blockade that was not the route we wanted to take. We did not want to extend our hand out to them, things like that. So I think we were all pretty much on the same page. The DGI represented something that we weren't really a part of.
I just cannot wrap my head around their transphobia. Like, their reasoning makes just no fucking sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, me neither. I don't really understand it. And even practically speaking, I just don't think that it's the best way forward to try to perpetuate these struggles that we have in our communities. I don't think the best way of going about doing that is by alienating so many people, which is what DGR seems to be best at. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the work they do is alienating and excluding people through really weird, really sketchy, overtly discriminatory language and views on gender theory that just don't. I don't even know what else to say about it. They're just kind of in their own world, I guess.
Did Eric McBay distance himself?
From what I understand, yeah. Well, from what I've seen, he's distanced himself, and he has since written, I don't know, an open letter or something along those lines, being like, "Yo, that's not me. That's why I left. Fuck all them. Let's keep moving forward." But that's what I saw last. Yeah.
What I like to say is, like, they seem to have a huge voice of militancy, but I've never heard of an action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just like what you're saying. Like, what the fuck do they do?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they put themselves out there as the top of militancy and as vocal supporters of underground action, but I don't. Obviously, there's a little bit of a gray area in terms of how one can actively support underground work, but which isn't to say that it can't be done. But to go on a platform like Derek Jensen and Lee Keith do, and to propagate themselves as spokespeople for some kind of vanguard civilization destroying team, it's just weird to me. It's weird to me, and yeah, like you said, they don't back it up with the actions at all, ever. I don't think I've seen one at all. So,
you know, on a side note, every time you say the word vanguard, I think of Vegan Reich.
That's a good association, I suppose.
I don't know where to take that, but that's just
yeah, it's there. It's there. It is what it is.
Let's just throw that out there in the ether.
So, is there any way that people can stay in touch with you or contact you in any way and learn more about the project as well?
Sure. Well, I mean, people can continue checking tarsandsblockade.org, and also our Facebook page. If you just type in Tar Sands Blockade, also our Twitter. So we're still out there social media wise, continuing to follow the news about other projects that are going around and what kind of work they're continuing to do down in Houston and other places like that. In terms of me personally, I'm just kind of bouncing around, traveling, and really paying attention to a lot of the substantial animal liberation victories that I've seen in the past few weeks, like the ICJ ruling against continuing permits for whaling in the Southern Oceans. That's really, really big. I've been really happy about that. And also China Southern pulling out of their involvement in transporting live animals to labs. There's been a lot going on in the past few weeks. And also these fur farm raids that are continuing from last summer. There's a huge upsurge in activity. So I've been trying to keep my eye on that. So yeah, I've been really excited about all that stuff, but I'll pop up when I do, I guess.
Well, we end every episode saying "fuck, shit, damn." Would you mind saying it for us this week?
Sure. Fuck, shit, damn.
Sweet. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. Y'all have a good day. Thanks for having me.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Today you heard
Crack and Smack. Keep on searching.
Right now you're listening to
Nightmares on Wax. You wish.
And as always,
El Commandante, which side are you on? Remember the book giveaway, Ashland Creek Press. Go to our website, whichsidepodcast.com/Ashland Creek. Or just follow the links at whichsidepodcast.com. It's pretty simple.
Just have to like us and Ashland Creek Press on Facebook or Twitter.
Post a picture.
There you go.
It's pretty easy. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to win that free membership, year-long membership to the website.
As well as the free book. And then there are a bunch of runner-up prizes as well. So keep on posting.
Okay.
Fuck, shit. Social. Amazon.
Fuck, shit, damn.
Fuck, shit, damn.
Yeah.
Social, Amazon, iTunes, you know the biz.
Yeah, if you don't, whatever. Fuck, shit, damn.
Fuck, shit, damn.
Which Side is produced by the Which Side Media Collective.